So, narrating my actions and thoughts during the run would help me better understand my decisions throughout the run. Um, by seeing whether or not my actions were actually meaningful, I could start being more proactive in removing those bad habits that I've developed and start reinforcing the good ones that may have accidentally appeared throughout the run. So, before we start, this speaker symbol shows when I'll be commentating over the video. I'll put this over the minimap since the minimap isn't all that relevant to the run itself. If you just want to hear my thoughts and reasoning during bosses or polls, then you can just look for this speaker symbol in the YouTube timeline. So something I do here is I put down my Ring of Frost to avoid the War Spear bleed. This is a nice way to avoid having to use one of my major defensives early, and it has the added benefit of protecting my friends if they're positioned nearby. So right now I have very poor positioning. I'm super far away from my team and I'm being chased by a Spiteful. One of the reasons why I'm so far away is in a previous Nokhud I did, I got hit by the frontal and died, so I wanted to stay as far away from the tank as I could. But this means I won't be healed if I'm hit by an arrow since I'm just so far away. I quickly repositioned myself to be closer to the Resto Druid to stand in F-low in case he dropped it, but I stood outside of the F-low anyways, so it didn't really matter. So I gave my team Mass Barrier here. My thought process behind this pack is dying. No damage is going out, but we have two War Spears that we're going to be pulling next. I figured that by putting Mass Barrier on CD now, it would let us use it again by the time the boss is down for one of his AoE stops. This would also be kind of a nice way to help the healer out and reduce some of the healer stress going into the next pull. So going into a War Spear pack, it's super helpful to start out by throwing down a Ring of Frost. It's just a free way to avoid having to use Warp, Bop, or any defensive that could be used elsewhere. So right here, this War Spear is about to be in-capped right before he reaches me, so I'm not going to get the bleed. This is something that anybody can do to help out their team. Blinding Light, DB, in-cap Roar, Fear, anything to stop them before they actually reach the person will prevent the bleed. So this Horn Sounder is casting Rally the Clan, but I don't notice it. I have both DB and Explosive up, so I could have prevented that. Once again, this Horn Sounder is casting Rally the Clan. I notice it, but I decide not to do anything about it, which is kind of dumb. It's just unnecessary damage that my whole team is taking because of that. So right here, I'm about to get double hit by the War Spear. I'll have 2 stacks of the bleed, so I'll instantly Ice Cold. I don't have Dwarf available, and I don't expect the Paladin to bop me, so I needed something to prevent the immense damage that I was about to experience. After the first 2 got off, I decided I wasn't going to let it happen again. I really focused on him. I kept him in my view the entire time, and I beat him to stop it. So whenever there's a boss mechanic that does a really big hit, I try to use shield and alter time
100.0%.
together every time. This helps mitigate the hit and also brings me back to full health. Especially on this boss where you can be really distant from the healer, it's really important to stay at max health. So Shards of Stone is about to be casted. I decided to use Invis since it's the only defensive that I have currently available. I always try to Invis whenever a mechanic or a cast has less than 3 seconds, so I can take advantage of that 60% DR from exiting Invis.
%. 100.0%.
So around here, I realize I do not have spell steal, which is extremely important for taking that shield. If the shield goes off, meaning it expires before it's completely destroyed or removed, your entire team will take a bunch of damage. So it's imperative that you have spell steal when you come into Nokhud, and that's something I need to keep in mind for the future. So while we're fighting this guy, our tank goes to the little elementals. Those guys have a really big shield you can spell steal, which is super nice for when you're fighting this next boss. If you have spell steal, be sure to complain if the tank does this and attacks the little guys really early. So once again, I'm prepping for this lightning circle that's about to pop. I have my shield up and I'm gonna alter time.
100.0%.
So for this phase, you just have to put a bunch of faith in your healer and trust that they're going to be able to do their job. It's extremely important that you save all of your defensives for Lightning Strike. It just does a ridiculous amount of damage. And in a couple of seconds, you'll see that I decided to use Mass Barrier to help our entire team.
99.1%.
So you want to keep your stacks throughout the fight really high, because this gives you a damage buff. When the boss goes into the phase where he's standing there just blasting everybody, you have to sit as close to the boss as possible with an orb to your back. This lets you refresh your stacks at the very last possible second. So as you can see here, I almost fully
100.0%.
refresh, but because of poor positioning, I just barely miss the orb. So I lose my big damage buff.
One 100.0%. One 100.0%.
for every Gale arrow, I always alter
100.0%.
time. It's extremely important to alter time this because if you're shot afterwards, you just die. There's nothing you can do about it.
One 100.0%. One 100.0%.
So right here, I'm about to be double shot. I get hit once, and then I notice that I'm being attacked again, but I'm too late with pressing my ice cold, so I take the damage anyways. I would have died if it wasn't for our healer pumping me back up and our paladin's word of glory.
One 100.0%.
So there's this spot where tanks can stand to avoid the frontal from those two little mini bosses, and it's super nice because none of them run away, and they just stand there the entire time. So I'm about to take a bunch of damage, and I have my fire shield up. This is something I need to keep in mind because if this was a higher key, I would have just died. For the static spears, I use Alter Time and Shield. This lets me go back in place, but unluckily for me, our rogue decides to invis the
100.0%.
mechanic, so I waste my Alter Time here. I didn't realize how much this mechanic would hurt on Tyrannical Week. I thought a shield would be enough, but I almost died. I keep this in mind for the next time it comes around because I use Ice Cold.
One 100.0%. One 100.0%.
So here's where I use my last defensive, which is Invis. It's really important to remember what you have in your toolkit and to be rotating defensives because as a mage, you basically always have something available.